Minister of Information and Culture says he's neither positive for COVID-19 nor in isolation, contrary to some reports.
Police debunks looting during next supermarket fire incident in Abuja.
Viral videos are false, fake, is not true. All those trolleys, they were pushing those goods to safety, which we have shown Nigerians, they have seen it.
Northern governors on Christmas homage to Calabar sue for national unity.
In Nigeria today, we shall discuss strengthening national unity.
Often we hear, united we stand, divided we fall. This popular phrase was first attributed to John Dickinson in a song he wrote known as the Liberty Song. The phrase has been used so often to inspire unity and explain how a lot can be achieved through cohesion and collaboration. Kieran?
Of course, Jimmy, we see the phrase united we stand, divided we fall manifest a lot in sports, where teams with cohesion and tactical skills are able to hold their own any day and defeat their opponents, especially in sports like football, basketball, and hockey.
Indeed, Kieran, and talking about football, it is one sport that makes Nigeria throw aside differences and sentiments to have a common purpose and focus towards winning a game.
And when eventually Nigeria wins in a football game, especially at the world stage, the celebration is devoid of ethno-religious or political sentiments. As you will see, joy and messages of cohesion reverberate across the land. One can easily recall such scenario when Nigeria defeated Brazil at the Atlanta 1996 Olympic Games, where the Dream Team won the gold for the country.
You know, I still remember that moment with nostalgia, you know.
Exactly.
the heartbeats, you know, and all that.
Jubilation in the middle of the night, you know, from 12 a.m. to even 6 a.m.
Because of the time difference,
Exactly.
and nobody was sleeping. And if wishes were horses, perhaps we would translate or replicate this bond in every facet of national life. Nonetheless, Nigeria continues to be one indivisible and united country in spite of the myriad of challenges bedeviling the nation.
This is not to say that there are no differences. In fact, Nigeria comprises of more than 250 tribes with different customs and traditions, and perhaps over 1,000 languages and dialects. But the nation has rather continued to emphasize ties that bind us together as against things that seek to divide us. And the NTA, as a national broadcaster, has been in the forefront of forging national unity. More so, schemes like the National Youth Service Corps have also encouraged Nigerians to have a national orientation and even intertribal marriages and interface, especially among the nation's younger generation.
Indeed, I am the product of intertribal marriage, Igala, Fulani, you know, but weeds and thorns do grow in a beautiful garden, they say. The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, was one quoted at a town hall meeting on national security in Kaduna as saying that security and its manifestation, whether banditry, terrorism, kidnapping, or sectarian agitations, pose a dangerous threat to the unity of the country.
Exactly, and the big question now is how did we get here, and what can we get back on course? What are the ties that hold us together as a nation, and how can we strengthen those ties? So we shall interrogate the issues as we discuss strengthening national unity on Good Morning Nigeria today. Welcome to the program, coming to you on a Yuletide holiday. My name is Kieran, whom I hope you're having a wonderful holiday.
And talking about ties that bind, it was a good thing to see two northern governors visit their Cross River State counterpart, Governor Ayade in Calabar, to celebrate Christmas, and they had discussions on national unity. That show of conviviality is indeed worthy of emulation. My name is Juma Yusuf. I join my colleague Kiran to welcome you to the program, reaching you live as always on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Good morning, Nigeria never fails to be your favorite breakfast companion, especially in this Yuletide period. We shall serve our complimentary segments, but first, let's join Ifeoma for our morning news. Good morning. Compliments of the season.
Good morning, Jumai and Kirian. Compliments of the season to you too. And here is the morning news. Officers and men of the fire service on Sunday battled to put out fire that broke out at the Nest Cash and Carry shopping mall, Jahi, along Kado axis of the FCT. The fire was noticed after a dark cloud of smoke was seen coming out from the building, which caught the attention of both security men at the mall and passers-by. Meanwhile, the Good Samaritan spirit in Nigerians has again been on display this Yuletide as security personnel who battled to put out the fire at the Nest Cash and Carry shopping mall debunked the videos which went viral on social media, alleging that goods were looted during the fire incident at the shopping mall.
False, fake is not true. All those trolleys, they were pushing those goods to safety, which we have shown Nigerians, they have seen it. All the media houses have already seen it. It's not true. The place has immediately been cordoned by all the joint security agencies. And I must commend the FEMA, the FCT NEMA, and all the security agencies for prompt response.
And to other news, Governor Ben Ayade has described the visits of some northern governors who are core Muslims to Calabar to celebrate Christmas with him as a hallmark of national unity that all Nigerians should emulate.
For our future, for our children and great-grandchildren, that's what President Muhammadu Buhari has been doing. We should work hard to overcome all challenges so that Nigeria takes its rightful place in the Committee of Nations.
Who are Muslims from North coming to the South on the day of Christmas to fellowship and celebrate and honor us on our Christmas day? I think this is the biggest message this country must take home.
Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya says the war against Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast will soon reach a logical conclusion with the support of all those concerned. The Chief of Army Staff stated this in a message read by his representative, Commander Infantry Corps, Major General Victor Ezugu, during a Christmas luncheon held at 3 Battalion Headquarters, Gamboru Ngala in Borno State.
Congratulate them for all we have achieved in 2021 and then project into 2022. We have made up our mind that we have to redouble our efforts towards ending insurgency as quickly as possible. We've set targets and timelines for ourselves.
It is another Christmas which entails the show of love. While many may have it in full package, how the internally displaced persons fed is the concern for many.
Glory that we were able to have even something to eat.
The attention of the Office of the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has been drawn to a report making the rounds that he has contracted the COVID-19 virus and that he is now in isolation where he is receiving treatment. In a statement signed by Segun Adeyemi, Special Assistant to the President in the Office of the Minister, noted that, for the record, the Minister does not have COVID-19, hence he is neither in isolation nor receiving treatment anywhere. The report, which was first published by an online newspaper and then launched on to by some mainstream media, once again highlights the uphill task the nation faces in its fight to stamp out fake news and misinformation. The statement pointed at the fact that the minister was at the Federal Executive Council meeting on Wednesday and the extraordinary FEC meeting on Thursday, as well as witnessed the swearing-in of the Minister of State for Works and Housing on Friday at the Villa, where correspondents of many media organizations are deployed, and also coordinated the post-FEC press briefing on Wednesday and Thursday. And for those who contract the virus, the minister said they deserve our empathy and prayers, not stigmatization. And that's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria continues with Kirian and Jumai after this break.
Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Now, let's go business. Now, the next is a business with Alika Opanachi, and of course, she's going to raise some issues concerning the business dealings during this Yuletide period.
Experts have identified mushrooms as a low-calorie source of fiber, rich in protein and antioxidants whose benefits Nigeria is not maximizing. But that may be small compared to the economic benefits that mushroom farmers says the nation may be losing.
Government mandate is to create enabling environment. They have to build around policy that will make business easy. They have to build policy. They have to think of research that will take care of drought.
The Mushroom Association is actually working to just get 10% of this world market value, which will give us about $4.5 billion.
Global market mushroom is said to also be growing rapidly, as the market was estimated at $45.3 billion in 2020 and projected to reach $72.5 billion by 2027. These statistics, experts says, present a lucrative and attractive option for Nigeria to key into mushroom production for economic diversification and job creation.
You're welcome back, and thanks, Alika, for the business package. Next on the program is Newspaper Review.
All right, here we welcome Bayo Atoyebi, our newspaper reviewer. Bayo, it's good to see you.
Good morning, Kirian. Merry Christmas.
Wish you a Merry Christmas as well.
Okay. Compliments of the season.
Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning. Good morning, Nigeria. Compliments of the season and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Well, let's begin with the leadership newspaper this morning. And just below the masthead, we have 2021 bond market rises by 44%. As federal government raises 2.7 trillion naira. You find details on page 8. Power play in Imo as police arrest Okorocha's son-in-law in church. With riders, arrest plot by Governor Uzodinma to frame up my family. That's attributed to Okorocha. Says security operatives humiliated my wife and daughter. Stop raising false alarm. Imo government tackles former governor. And at the side piece of the leadership newspaper, you see raw gold orders untapped in Kaduna. That's attributed to Nimasa DG. You find details on page 17. NAFDAC warns against use of sex-enhancing drugs. Details on page 12. Poor monitoring Mars 92.4 billion women empowerment projects. Details on page 6. Looting spree as next cash and carry goes up in flames. Well, that has been debunked. It didn't really happen that way because you see the picture story there. Next cash and carry supermarket completely razed in Abuja yesterday. Onlookers watch helplessly as firefighters attempt to put out the fire. Cholera killing more Nigerians than COVID-19, experts say. You find details on page 8. World leaders mourn Desmond Tutu. That's on page 6. Let's quickly go to the Punch newspaper. Above the masthead, we have 38,518 aggrieved pension contributors change PFAs, transfer 148.11 billion naira. You find details on page 24. 556 billion crude oil lost to vandalism orders in 3 months. NMPC report. You find details on page 21. Buhari, Obasanjo, Ramaphosa mourn as anti-apartheid icon Tutu dies at 90. You find details on page 7. Review forex ban on 40 items to save naira, economists tell CBN. You find that on page 22. At the side piece of the Punch newspaper, manpower can cause organ damage, sudden death. NAFDAC warns. Details on page 7. Manpower is a sex enhancement drug. Community laments as Nasarawa demolishes FG Sesame processing plant. Details on page 11. And the bold headlines we see: states revive isolation centers, COVID-19 cases soar, vaccination grounded at 3.9%. With riders, Ogun has 260 bed spaces, 537 bed spaces unoccupied in Lagos. Infections hit 236,000 as military police fail to enforce vaccination. Bauchi governor laments 7 billion monthly wage bill, fingers payroll fraudsters. Details on page 13. Hunters arrest bandits, rescue 9 villagers, gunmen abduct 5 in Kaduna. Page 11. Troops deployed as gunmen abduct Plateau monarch, lawmaker laments. Details on pages 4 and 5. And I think that's what we have in the Punch and the newspaper this morning, Kira.
All right, now let's go to the Nation newspaper very quickly. The Nation newspaper, above the nameplate, to have Okorocha, Imo government clash over Nwosu's arrest. That's on page 29. 32 billion naira debt. Local contractors accuse ministry of non-payment. That's on page 6. Federal government to inducted doctors. Sean strikes. That's on page 6. Odubu wins Goda Ultimate Search this season 12. That's on page 12. Scramble for Nigerian shares by foreign investors heightens. That's on page 29. Now the lead story on the Nation: Constitution review, Senate forecloses state creation. With 3 riders, election matters to end at appeal court. Governors to exercise control over police. 70 years retirement age for all judges. All that on page 5 of the Nation newspaper. Well, you may read this in one of the newspapers. Buhari, Obasanjo, Obama, others mourn Tutu. World leaders commiserate with Ramaphosa and South Africans. All right, banks, we're turning to the new telegraph now. Banks borrowed 9.12 trillion naira from CBN in 6 months. Banks borrowed 9.12 trillion naira from CBN in 6 months. It's on page 3. PEF must account for interest on 34 billion naira in fixed deposit, as according to the Senate. Anti-apartheid crusader Desmond Tutu dies at 90. North will support Southeast. Ohuabunwa troops arrest IPOP ESN leader in Enugu. Fire God's next catch and carry mall in Abuja. That's yesterday. It's on page 30. Well, the lead story on the Telegraph: Nigeria risks generation of illiterate children, according to Kaigama. It's on page 2. All right, the photo story is one that will interest you. That's the members of the Islamic movement in Nigeria presenting a portrait of Jesus Christ to the General Overseer of Christ Evangelical and Life Intervention Ministry, Pastor Yohana Buru. As a matter of fact, about 525 Muslims attended the church service as part of efforts to strengthen Christian and Muslim relationship and religious tolerance. That's something to emulate. Below that, we have 2022, 11 MDAs to spend 3.4 billion naira on software. With rider stakeholders fret over federal government's approach, demand local content policy execution. The stories on pages 3, 17, and 19. Bio.
Thank you. Very well loaded. Let's start with the fact that Saturday was Christmas, yesterday was Boxing Day, and President Muhammadu Buhari has enjoyed Christians who joined their fellows around the world to celebrate Christmas, to remember the less privileged. He described the Christmas period as a period that unites the world to celebrate the togetherness, joy, peace, and share love through goodwill and gifts. He said COVID-19 for 2 years has constrained celebrations, but nevertheless, humanity has risen in unison to confront COVID-19. He appealed to citizens to embrace vaccination. On security, the president says, though there are successes, challenges are still persistent. Nevertheless, our courageous security bolstered with support daily confront the wicked ones among us. With renewed empowerment, the president says issues which inflict pain and to all of us will soon be a history. As we felicitate with family and friends, colleagues, associates, let us spare moments to reach out to the less privileged. Talking about reaching out, there are reports of Muslims joining Christians to celebrate Christmas. Part of what Kirian read there, the Islamic movement in Nigeria carried that out in Zaria. And also, Governor of Kebbi State and his counterpart from Jigawa was joined by the former governor and another guest, and they were guests of the governor of Cross River State, Ben Ayali, to celebrate Christmas. These are signs that we can coexist and cohabit together, irrespective of the religious differences. May this season usher goodwill and peace across our nation. Meanwhile, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory has commiserated with the management of the next cash and carry supermarket that went into flames yesterday. Mala Mohammed Bello says that he expressed shock about the fire and has promised that it will be thoroughly investigated, at least to prevent such reoccurrence. A worker at the site said that the fire started about 8 a.m. from a first floor of the supermarket. He said, in fact, the fire truck that is stationed at the supermarket could not be activated because the keys could not be found. They blamed the fire services for not coming early, but the Director General of the Federal Emergency Management Services, the FCT, Abbas Idris, says that upon getting the distress call, they went there promptly and cordoned off the place. In fact, the persons you saw were carrying materials there, some even in trolleys. There was a man who was carrying mattress. I was wondering where a person will carry mattress to. They were actually workers of the supermarket who were trying to salvage some of the goods. They were not looters.
Yeah, you know, Bayo, this is part of what we keep saying, even on this program and other programs on NTA. How quick do we have response when we have an emergency? Right. For instance, you said that there's a truck stationed, a fire truck stationed at the premises of the supermarket, but it was not activated because there were no keys. Now, who is responsible for that? Somebody has to be there. If the truck is stationed at that premises, then it means that somebody must be there. You know, you can't just leave a truck like that to operate itself. Yeah. Somebody has to be there. But the good thing, Bayo, which also I'd like you to talk about, is the good Samaritan nature of Nigerians, you know, because what happened yesterday, people thought it was looting that was going on. But when we now had the right information, the people gathered to assist in ensuring that some goods are rescued. And again, that's a very good thing to write about.
One good aspect of the social media.
Yes, only 4 guys were arrested when they tried to play smart by trying to steal. But other than that, what was seen as looting was actually a help to evacuate some of the, to salvage them. But one of the important things is that there's need to look out about such fires. You recall that there was a band of supermarket too that caught fire in July. I think July 17 that was. So something has to be done.
But what happened to that girl who set the fire? It just went poof.
I don't know. Maybe they are still investigating. But one thing is obvious. If you have smoke detectors within the premises, there will have been an alarm that will have alerted everybody. You don't have to wait until smoke begins to billow from the fire. Before you see huge smoke from the fire, it means the fire has gone very widely within the premises before you see smoke upstairs. So these are the measures that we need to put in our places. Unfortunately, this big supermarket is one of the first indigenous supermarkets in the country, established in 2013. They were trying to also establish branches in Port Harcourt, Lagos, and maybe in Anambra. But this is a very serious setback. But be that as it may, there is information from the Special Assistant for the President, Mr. Femi Adesina, that President Muhammadu Buhari is fine. This is as a result of the fact that there is information that the President's ADC, Yusuf Dodo, and his Chief Security Officer, Aminu Musa, and Senior Special Assistant for Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, have all tested positive to COVID-19. But President Muhammadu Buhari is safe. You recall that just last week, he got his booster dose of COVID-19. Presidential aid says, Femi Adesina says that it goes to show that the presidential aids are human. But meanwhile, Malam Garba Shehu has confirmed that yes, he's tested positive and his situation is not as grave as possible. He tested positive on Wednesday, and Femi Adesina says by now he's gradually getting out of it. They've all been in isolation. Well,
and that tells you
very quick recovery.
The pervasive nature of this Omicron variant. Right. And we're happy that the president is safe because these are presidential aides, people who usually stay close to the president, So it's a good news that the president did not get it, And that is another point, Bio. For Nigerians, another thing that Nigerians should try to imbibe, the culture of adhering to the non-pharmaceutical protocol for this COVID-19, against COVID-19. And if Nigerians do not do that, of course, we might be seeing rise in Omicron variant infection in Nigeria after this celebration.
Exactly. Also fine is the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. There was news on the social media that he had tested positive COVID-19. Without confirming, without fact-checking, a conventional television station used that to close its news that the Minister of Information has tested positive to COVID-19. And is in isolation. So, you see, the lesson to learn for us in the conventional media is when you try to take news from the social media and use it as the basis for your reporting, you risk damaging your integrity. The best approach is that our time-tested slogan, when you are in doubt, fact-check.
Yes, or leave it.
Leave out.
Yeah, leave out.
Because I also saw it in one of the conventional media. I was shocked, when I saw it. It's not just that they read it on the news, but they were scrolling it. They were scrolling it,
On one side,
and the information minister is a key minister, in this dispensation, and they should, and it's very easy for you to get information from some of his aides, cross-check
from his aide or call him directly.
Exactly. Before we go, the world mourns Desmond Tutu.
Yes, Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Emeritus of Cape Town. He died at age 90.
Celebration of life. Huh?
Yes, in fact, the announcement was made by the minister in the office of the South African president. Already President Muhammadu Buhari has commiserated with President Cyril Ramaphosa and the people of South Africa, as well as the global Christian community, especially the Anglican Communion. Buhari says the death of the iconic teacher, human rights activist, and leader of thought has created a void in the world in their need of wisdom, integrity, courage, and reasoning.
He'll be missed.
Yes. Archbishop Desmond Tutu fought tooth and nail to support the fight against minority rule. He was, in fact, the chairman of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yes. In fact, in his days, he was very, very, very active.
Yes.
In fact, some of his activities also saw to the independence of South Africa.
Yeah.
He did so well. Of course, he was a Nobel laureate. During that period, of course, he exemplified, what Africans should emulate in terms of fighting for the cause of humanity.
Not only that, religious leaders need to emulate persons of his like. Unfortunately, there are religious leaders who use their position to fan embers of division and crisis. Archbishop Desmond Tutu is the opposite of that, and that is why he got the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984.
Well, Bayo, on that note, thank you so much for coming this morning.
Thank you too.
Enjoy the rest of the day. We'll take a break now. When we return, our discussion on strengthening national unity will begin. Don't go away.
Now, to begin our discussion, which is on strengthening national unity, here is our correspondent, Oyemi Ajayi, with a background report.
Nigeria, a multilingual nation with diverse cultures. More than 250 tribes with different customs and tradition living together for ages. Irrespective of tribe or creed, Nigerians live as one. In the bid to further strengthen national unity, the National Youth Service Corps gave room for the interface among the youths from different parts of the country, even encouraging intertribal marriages. However, it becomes worrisome when certain vices threaten national cohesion. They include the spate of kidnapping, terrorism, banditry, ritualism, and other emergent vices. This is why a series of campaigns have been embarked upon to change the narrative and reorientate the people. They include the need for tolerance for one another, showing hospitality as well as living in harmony, devoid of discrimination against tribe, gender, and religion. Part of this was exhibited when some Muslims joined their Christian counterparts during worship in celebration of Christmas. Some northern governors also celebrated the Yuletide in Calabar in promotion of national unity.
Great country where we should pray for peace, we should enjoy ourselves, we should build a country for our future, for our children and great-grandchildren. That's what President Muhammadu Buhari has been doing. We should work hard to overcome all challenges so that Nigeria takes its rightful place in the Committee of Nations.
Muslims from north coming to the south on the day of Christmas to fellowship and celebrate and honor us on our Christmas day. I think this is the biggest message this country must take home, that this country can be united.
Some have emphasized the need to promote religious harmony and social bonding to strengthen Nigeria's aspiration for unity and development. Ethnic, tribal, and religious sentiments are considered major divisive tendencies enough to sabotage national unity. Now, what more should be done to ensure the promotion of national unity? Guests on the program will give their perspectives in a moment.
Thank you, Oyemi Ajayi. And joining us to discuss the topic, we have here in our studio Ahmed Saju, a former Commissioner for Information and Strategy and Public Affairs Analyst. Good to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Compliments of the season.
Thank you. Compliment of the season to you too.
And also joining us in the studio is Julius Ogoro, Director Research and Strategy, National Prosperity Movement, NPM. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you.
All right, and joining us from our Enugu studio is Professor Christian Anieke. Professor Anieke is the Vice Chancellor of Godfrey Okoye University, Enugu. Good morning, Prof, and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigerians, and happy Christmas.
All right, gentlemen, you're most welcome. Look at Nigeria's development trajectory, or taking a panoramic view of how the nation started after independence. We've had 3 years civil war, and after the civil war, we've had also military interregnums, and on different occasions, we've had political dispensations. Now we're in the Fourth Republic, which has, of course, lasted for over 20 years. And in all these trajectory, what has remained a central focus is that of unity, right? And I want to bring you in here, Ahmed Saju. Why is national unity important in a heterogeneous nation like ours?
I think, let me start by actually saying a Merry Christmas and compliment of the season to Nigerians who are watching us. The truth about it is that you can't have a nation unless you are united. Once you are not united, you don't have a nation. You are just a collection of people, everybody living his own life. But I think we need to build a nation. And to build a nation, we have to build it around unity. And unity means coming together. But there are a lot of lies about this country that we need to debunk. First and foremost, You know, a lot of people continuously tell us that the problem of our unity has to do with extreme diversity, that we're too diverse as a nation. But look at Somalia. Somalia has no diversity. They're the same Somalis, the same tribe, the same religion. They're all Muslims. But they're not stable. So diversity itself is not a factor, you know, in configuring whether people are united or not. Some people complain about our huge population. Rather than see it as a productive resource, as an advantage, we see it as a disadvantage, but it's not a disadvantage. Otherwise, look at South Sudan. South Sudan is a very small country with a very small population, but they are not stable. So the unity of this country is must be anchored on we telling ourselves the truth. And the truth about it is that, first, we need to build an elite consensus around core values that aid unity. And what are those core values? Those core values are, you know, fairness, equity, justice, and inclusion. You know, you must build an elite consensus around what constitutes those values so that we can have a united country, and then we can build a nation. You know, a nation is built around a united entity with certain core values that are sacrosanct. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that we must also, you know, get it right at the leadership level. You know, we need a kind of leadership at all levels, leadership that inspires people to come together, leadership that sees everybody as one. I keep telling people day in, day out that we started by indicting ourselves in our own constitution. You know, when the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria said ministers must come from every state, meaning that if you don't have somebody from your state, you are not protected. It's in it itself an indictment of ourselves. We can have 10, 15 ministers running this country and then looking at, you know, the country as holistic because they are on a delegated mandate from a president whose constituency is the entire country, and that they should look at every state as their own. We must begin to look beyond the surface of, you know, talking about unity. And I want to give you an example. We're complaining about the contradictions in our system now. That there's marginalization here, there is lack of care of certain groups here and there. But these contradictions, if we split this country today, we are just splitting those contradictions. Because our history, like you said, let's look at the trajectory of our history. We started with 3 regions. A lot of people said they were being oppressed under these 3 regions. We broke to 4. A lot of people still complain. We had 12. People still complain. We had 19. People complain. We had 21. People complain. We had 30. Today we are 36. And there are about 100 requests at the National Assembly asking for state. Meaning what we're doing is that we are simply, you know, multiplying the contradictions within the new constituent unit, not necessarily addressing the contradictions. So we must now begin to sit together as members of an elite class and start looking at, you know, the core values upon which our unity, our nation should be built, and then we protect those core values. And I think we as the discussion goes on, I'll tell you some of the steps some of us are taking, because we will not sit by and watch and see things happen this way and not make our own contributions. The only way, if, you know, something bad can continue to triumph over something good, is for good people to keep quiet and say we're doing nothing, or for you to begin to feel that whatever I do has no value. Everybody's contribution has value.
Indeed, Ahmed Saju. I appreciate your opening comment there. You know, you sort of touched on so many issues like build elite consensus, you know, around value system, and diversity is not necessarily a strength. Let's come to Julius Oguru, Director Research and Strategy, National Prosperity Movement. You're headed a place where it talks about unity. Our unification is our strength, our diversity is our strength. Ahmed Saju is saying it is not necessarily that. So how, and there have been calls for, you know, to strengthen institutions that can promote unity in Nigeria. What's your take on that?
Well, I think leadership is a trigger of unity. You know, we need a leader that can build the kind of values that will lead to unity. Unity could be ephemeral. You could build unity around shared vision, shared aspirations, shared values, you know. A lot of Nigerians think because of, they think unity can only be built around ethnic identity. They'll say, oh, if we have a Yoruba nation, we'll be more united. If we have an Igbo nation, but that's not necessarily so. You could have a people who are homogeneous in terms of ethnicity, but yes, are divided in terms of ideological differences, in terms of religious differences, in terms of class differences. You know, like he said, you could have people who are even of the same faith, but have sectarian differences. You know, like you have in Ireland, where you have differences because of, in the same faith, where you have the Protestant and the Catholics, you know. So you could have differences on anything. We in Nigeria are of one race. Our racial identity is one. We have an homogeneous racial identity, but we are not united. We have divided, we have created division around other issues. So if you have countries, if we have smaller states, you could have differences in those states that could even be stronger than ethnic identity. You understand? You could have people in the same place who speak Igbira, but yet are divided, maybe according to religion. So to build this kind of a nation where people will be united, you really don't require homogeneous identity. First of all, we don't have one homogeneous identity. We all have different identities. We all have mosaic of identities. I'm a man, I'm a Christian, I'm a you know, you could have various layers of identity. I am black, you know. So what you need to have a united country where you have people who will be united, I think it's mostly about leadership, where you could build a person who could inspire people to unite around shared vision and values. You know, a leader that can make people see an aspiration and they will be united around it. That's what we need. So at my organization, we are trying to build this kind of system. We are trying to have a conversation where we could lead to leadership that will understand this idea that we are pushing. Although if we have smaller nations, it does not mean we are going to be peaceful and stable. Like he said, like what happened in Somalia, what is happening in South Sudan, and what has happened elsewhere. But you could have a diverse country like India or like the America, like other countries. Yes, they could unite around a shared value and around a shared vision, and they will pursue it, you know. But you need leadership to trigger that. So my organization is fully involved in trying to create a kind of leadership that will have understanding of this view and lead Nigeria toward this shared value and shared vision for a better and stable country. So that's what we are doing at the NPM.
All right, we'll come back to you in the course of the program. And let's get down to Enugu, the coast city, where we have Professor Christian Aneke. Prof, you've listened to the two guests here in the studio. I'm just going to ask you to let us see to what the basic tenets of national unity are. What are those tenets, you know, that tend to strengthen the unity of a nation such as ours?
I'm glad that this discussion is taking place in the context of Christmas. Christmas is a time of joy, a time to emphasize unity, a time to emphasize peace. Remember that when Christ was born, the message is glory to God in the highest and peace to men and women of good will. So it's very important that we are discussing this now. What are the tenets? What are the things? What are the ingredients actually needed for unity to be possible in a country? I'm going to be looking more at the channels of peace. You see, when you have a value system, when you have virtues you want to communicate in a society, it's always about how do you do this? What channels will be possible, be available to you for the communication of the value system? School is one channel for doing this. You cannot be talking about unity without the procedure, the process of communicating unity in a country. First of all, I don't think we emphasize the importance of the value system that will actually make unity possible at the lower levels of our schools, from nursery school, primary school, and then junior secondary school and senior secondary school. What are we teach civic education, for example, we must be looking at the content of that. the content of what is being communicated to the children at the level of nursery school, the content of what is being communicated to them at the level of primary school and at the level of secondary school. Because that's actually where you give the message that will influence the attitude of tolerance, the attitude of accepting others, the attitude of knowing that they exist with human beings. We are beings with others. We are not isolated beings. So when we communicate this properly at that level, then we can be sure it will bear fruit. Unfortunately, in this country, we have over 15 million children who don't go to school, who have never seen the four walls of any school. And I don't know what will be the result if you do well in the schools, nursery school, primary school, and the 15 million children roaming the streets and all that have no idea of what you are talking about. But that's another side of it. Let us get it right, first of all, among the children who are going to school. And while we push and ensure that all Nigerians, irrespective of where they come from, have access to education. Very important, again, is in the tertiary institutions, how are we communicating unity? How are we communicating peace? How are we communicating togetherness? How are we communicating the fact that we are a nation? We have a program, for example, in our university called Unity Week. Every year, students from different parts of Nigeria celebrate their identity. And the other students are invited to be part of that. The other students are invited to see how these people cook, see the kind of food they cook and test their food. Others are invited to participate in their dances and learn their dancing steps. At the end of the Unity Week, you see that students are making friends from all over Nigeria. And I'm glad that our university, in the choice of a chancellor of the chancellor of the university, chose somebody from the north, Kaigama, the Archbishop of Abuja. And one of his programs is to bring down, when he was the Archbishop of Jos, to bring down students from the north down to the southeast. They stay about 3 days, 4 days with the students, with the young people, have programs together with them, and then at the end of the day, you see that I have made friends in the South. Those of them who never visited the South would have the opportunity of coming down and making friends, and knowing that those from the South are fellow Nigerians and are as friendly as they are. So these are some of the things. If I imagine our institutions having this kind of program, and all young people having the opportunity of interacting from people from different parts of Nigeria, it's certainly going to be a different ball game. It's always about leadership in this country. But how many are the leaders actually? We have 220 million Nigerians. If we get it right, then we'll get it also right at the level of leadership in this nation. So I think the basic thing is what we are doing in our schools, basically. And then in the institution, in religious institutions, it's always embarrassing to me when a religious leader is preaching war, when a religious leader is doing something that is actually against unity of a country. Religion basically is a very peaceful thing. And when somebody who is in the field of religion is talking about how to fight, how to destroy, how to maim, even though he is not going to participate in that war, it's something actually very embarrassing, something that contradicts what religion is all about. If religion cannot promote peace in a country, then it is a useless institution.
Prof, I'm still going to stay with you. In the intro, while we were introducing the topic with my colleague Kieran, we talked about, the scenarios that inspire unity in Nigerians. We talked about football. You mentioned drama. You mentioned our dance, excursions between students across Nigeria. And the institutions itself, that's the Unity School we used to have, the NYSC. What happened? What changed? Because I grew up in a place where there was nothing like you're a Christian, I'm a Muslim, and you're from Kogi, I'm Kanuri. It didn't happen then. What happened? How did it begin to change? And how can we look into it and find proper solutions to it?
You see, it's always about having a plan and ensuring that you follow through in your plan. The youth service program, for instance, is an arrangement to bring young people from different parts of Nigeria together. What do we see today? People want to stay in their states. Of course, you understand the insecurity in this country. You don't want to go to a place where you get cared. But there can be an adequate arrangement where youth corps members are protected, where the camps are protected, and where we select places where they are posted. We can't guarantee the unity of young people. But the idea of allowing people to stay in their states with excuses and all that is actually destroying the scheme. Many Nigerians have gone to other states, and have been able to see their culture, listen to the language, learn even some language. Those Nigerians have immensely benefited from this program. Unity schools also, I don't know whether we are actually still pursuing drawing people from all over Nigeria, or are we just filling up the unity schools with people from the same area? It's all about having a very good arrangement. The thing in this country is that we normally have wonderful arrangements, but implementation is always a problem, because everything in this country depends on politics. Instead of allowing the civil service and organs and all that to carry through, politicians will come and change a very good arrangement, and then at the end of the day, a very beautiful project is killed. So let us ensure that we entrust the implementation of some of these programs with those who are non-partisan, and especially the civil service and organs, instead of allowing politicians to have room to change things. I don't know the kind of law that will actually make it possible for non-interference in such programs, because it's only non-interference that will guarantee the continuity of that. And ensuring that when you have a certain percentage of representation in the unity schools, that percentage is implemented, and the school that is not doing that will be closed down. There are different ways of actually ensuring that a good project continues in a nation. But when we allow politicians free hand to change things the way they like, then it may not work. NYSC is a very good arrangement, and we must ensure that young people are coming from different places. And if insecurity is a challenge, then we'll guarantee the security of young people by making sure that they're sent to only places where they are secure within a state. But the idea of keeping people in their states, this idea is actually defeating the whole idea of national integration and the opportunity to learn from others.
All right, Prof. Well, I'm happy you came from the academic angle, because when they say catch them young, it means that you are trying to ensure that the younger generation of Nigerians imbibe the values and the core values that will promote national unity. Thank you. Let's return to Abuja here, where we have Ahmed Saju. There's something you pointed out, in your initial comments, where you said that, look, it's not a must that every state should produce a minister. So sometimes in trying to foster national unity in terms of using institutions, the government perhaps may have been going wrong without knowing it. For instance, we have the Federal Character Commission in this country, which of course ensures that all parts of the country are included in whatever development project or development arrangements in terms of employment and what have you. The role of that agency, is it for or against the unity of the country, do you think?
I think, I said it before, that the core values that can engineer that unity in a country, must be the concept of fairness, equity, justice, and inclusion. If you have this as your core values of existence as a nation, you do not need any federal anything. Anybody that goes to a particular place knows that he is there, not as an ambassador of his village or his home state, but actually as a Nigerian who is to render service to other Nigerians. The phobia we have created around the fear of people not being able to represent the whole is what makes everybody wants to be there so that he can be represented. But that in itself is a negation of unity, is an open confession that we have not developed, our capacity to look at ourselves as one. I am not an ambassador of my place in this place. I am a Nigerian talking to fellow Nigerians. And I am a product, I am a very proud national unity person, because there is no state in this country that you go to and you mention my name and somebody does not say, oh, he's my friend. I don't have that state. We have a situation right now as I'm talking to you today. Those of us who ever worked in NTA Yola, everyone that had ever worked there, wherever you are, they are all gathering today in NTA Yola to celebrate what we called family reunion. It was a workplace that has become a family for us. This is the kind of Nigeria we were foreseeing. I never knew while I worked in NTA Yola, I never knew of the differences of religion, ethnicity, or where people come from. And we had people from all over the place. So we can build unity around institutions where we work. We can build them around institutions where we go to school. We can build them. But I think Prof raised a very fundamental issue. When some people are excluded from the system, they constitute a clog. You know, when you have street children, when you have, for example, a National Assembly that has less than 10% women representation, that is not inclusive. And that is also a negation of unity, because when you look at unity, unity means that everybody comes on table and promotes the good of the whole. And where you have a political system where out of the 36 governors, not one is a woman, you know, our ministers, the percentage of women are very small. You know, our National Assembly, the percentage of women are very small. It's not inclusive. And you can't have unity unless you have an inclusive system that brings everybody. And when we talk about federal character, are you not looking at gender as also part of the character that you're going to put? Are you not putting young people, youth, as part of the federal character you're talking about? What is the percentage of youth in our governance system? What is the percentage of youth in our decision-making process? What is the percentage of women? What is the percentage of people who have who are physically challenged or some other? So we are saying, what I'm saying is that our unity should be built around these core values. We must be inclusive. We must have equity. We must have fairness. We must have justice for everybody. And so that is the way to build a nation. And like my brother Julius has been telling you, you know, at the core of it is a leadership that promotes all of this. And the leadership does not have to be recruited to represent in the sense of everybody must come on table, but whoever finds himself in a position of leadership must promote these core values and must ensure that everybody is his own. And in the process, we will be able to build a nation that we'll be proud of. And I repeat, without any fear of contradiction, because some of us are taking steps to start what we call the Nigeria agenda and begin to converse around the Nigeria agenda. What is the agenda for Nigeria? But without fear of contradiction, I want to repeat again that the contradictions we find in our nation today are deep-rooted. And they will be there. If we divide this nation, we are only dividing those contradictions into the new constituent unit. And what are some of the manifestations of these contradictions are extreme social inequality. You know, the people who have and the people who don't have, the gap is so wide. And the privations are becoming the norm. And people who are deprived, who do not have means of forcing themselves into the system, have decided to take on some other means that we don't like. So there's social inequality. There's deep-rooted poverty. We have no reason to be poor. We're a prosperous nation. We're prosperous in terms of our human capacity. We are among the most talented individuals God has created in this world. All these Yahoo boys you're talking about is talent. You know, if we had created opportunities for them to redirect their capacities in something more productive, we will benefit from it. We have diverse resources, both minerals and non-minerals. We have and we are protected by Almighty God. You've never heard of typhoon in Nigeria. You've never heard of earthquake. You've never heard of volcano, tsunami, or anything. So we have all the benefits that can build a united nation that can be very prosperous and that can cater for everybody. But we need to get it at the level of the way we manage ourselves. And that is where leadership comes in.
Indeed, Ahmed Saju, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions. Let me join Julius now. The calls for restructuring of Nigeria is getting louder. And do you think if it is achieved or if it is done the way every ethnic group wants to have a structured system. Will it work?
It may work. Restructuring is mainly about decentralization. We could, the system is we have a very clogged system, especially at the center. If you decentralize, it could be better for management, but it doesn't have implication, I think, for unity. Like what we said about having smaller nations that could still be disunited, be unstable, have serious crises. So those things can be replicated even in a decentralized or a restructured Nigeria. Unity is a different concept entirely. It's about a feeling. It's about patriotism. It's about loving your country. That does not mean if you have a better management of your country, you could have those feelings. Do you understand? But in terms of restructuring, it could help in terms of the management of our resources, the management of our human resources. It could help. But I don't think it has serious implication for unity. The professor talked about the agents of unity, the vehicles for unity, those institutions that were created as agents for unity, the NYC, the unity schools, and the other. Those institution could be mere symbolic if you lack the ingredients for national unity, which Saju mentioned: inclusion, fairness, equity, and justice. If you have a system where you promote one ethnic group above the other ones, you cannot have unity. People will have to react to that kind of situation. If you have a system where there are so many poor people who the gap between the haves and the have is so huge, you cannot have unity. If you have a system where one gender or one system is promoted, you cannot have. So when you have inclusion, when you have fairness, when you have equity, where people know there is justice, you can have unity. You can build unity around these shared values, around these shared goals and aspirations, and you could now have a country out of this. It doesn't matter if we even have half of our country is made up of white people. We are blacks now. If half of our country is made up of white people, the other half is made up of Chinese, or you could have a united country from these different people if you can develop a shared dream, or build the country around some shared aspiration, not ethnicity, not race, not language, not religion. But so far, we've not got it yet. That's why we talk about leadership. That's why we talk about leadership, that we could build that leadership that could drive the Nigerian identity and not an ethnic identity, not a Yoruba president, or a Southwest president, or an Igbo president, a Nigerian president. Somebody will come and say, okay, yes, I didn't choose the place of my birth, I'm Yoruba, but I'm a Nigerian first. And I want us to see, you could have that kind of president for 2 terms. You could have people start thinking differently. And if you have incremental progress, such a man leads the country, another man leads the country. Within a generation, you have people with different mindset. So far, we've not been led, we've not had the good fortune of such leadership. We've had people who come from some provinces and see themselves primarily from those areas. So if we have a leader that can see the Nigerian identity as the first identity to drive. So when he talked about we don't even need ministers from each zone, if the president is fair, if the ministers are not going to start working for their own for their own group people. Why do I need a minister if I know the minister is going to be fair? If there is a need for infrastructure in my place, he's going to build it irrespective of whether it's from another place. So that is what we need. I think leadership is a driver of national unity. There is no way you can do it. People respond to what, it is the elite that decide the ideological part of a country. It's the elite that decide the progressive part of whatever part the country is going to do, not the people. But there could be a small people that say we are going communist. Because small people say, oh, we are left. It is. So we are particular about leadership. We are particular about the kind of leadership that could come and drive this Nigerian identity and not a Southwest or Igbo or Yoruba or Hausa identity. So that's what we think. So if we have all these institutions and you don't have the ingredients for national unity, we are wasting time. Those ingredients are fairness, inclusion, equity, justice, and to some extent, economic prosperity. When people are well fed and okay, you can talk about unity to them. When people are hungry and poor, they don't even want to hear you, let alone you are preaching to them about national unity. And so that's my...
Yes, talking about the ingredients, yes. Fairness, yes. Equity, inclusion, yes. Justice. Yes. Now, all these ingredients are necessary, yes. for us to have a united nation.
Yes, sir.
And I want the Prof to come in here because he has taken us to the issue of the role of leaders, the role of politicians, especially Nigerian politicians in this connection, because they have been accused variously for spreading sentiments for political gains, and that this has lasted for a very long time. There are some certain issues that are so sensitive in this country, especially security matters, where you hear different governors making some comments that are sentimental, comments that are even incisive, and all of that. So what should be the role of leaders to ensure that we sustain our unity and even go ahead to strengthen it?
I'll go back to my field. My field is the field of education. The role of leaders is simply to guarantee education in a country. Because when you guarantee sound education in a country, then you are going to get the kind of leaders that you need as a nation. Leaders must see that education is actually taken very seriously. It's very unfortunate. You know, the easiest way of making people slave is simply not to give them education. And then everything is possible. Then you can manipulate them the way you like. But the moment people get sound education, then they will force the leaders to dialogue. What is missing in this country is dialogue. Because first of all, many Nigerians don't know what the issues at stake. They can't participate. There are a good number of intelligent Nigerians. But what is the percentage? How many Nigerians can participate in national discussions, can discuss things about economy, about politics, about social life, about good living and all that? How many Nigerians will even understand us, what we are saying now? What percentage of Nigerians listen to us and understand us? So we must force our leaders, if it is possible, to guarantee education. That's the only thing that works in a place like this. Ethnicity is not our problem, because we have seen countries with diversity and they are succeeding. What our problem is that we don't have a system that will make participation and inclusion possible. And that system is a very good education system. It makes participation possible because it means that all the citizens are enlightened, they can understand the issues at stake, and they can actually vote well if they are properly educated. It's always fascinating to me to see that the smallest farmer in Austria has got his or her newspapers, get radio, television, and they knows everything about the farm work. Knows all the things that apply and what not to do in the farm work and all that. Doesn't need you. We're properly educated. I've always said that unless we get it right at the lower level of education, we are wasting our time here. The Austrian system is sound the nursery school, sound the primary school, sound the secondary education, and it's obligatory for you to be in school until you reach the age of 13, 14. You must be in school. And the standard is the same. And at the end of the day, you have people who understand. You have people who can participate in dialogue. You have people who can engage leaders. You have people who can make leaders accountable. All we're saying in this country now is the leaders should. And they know they can manipulate the people. They know they can get 15 million people who don't know anything and get them to vote for them. They know this. And that's why they are not very serious. That's why they're not accountable. There must be a law that will enforce every governor to ensure that the schools are good. There must be a law that will enforce every president to ensure that the schools are good and that the nursery schools are properly funded and controlled. Why can't we have a body in control of nursery schools and the standard the way we have NUC? What about the secondary school? What body is actually controlling the standard and doing accreditation for secondary schools and all that? Why can't we guarantee this? The moment to get it right at the lower levels of education, the moment to give Nigerians education, these things will take care of themselves. Seek education first, and every other thing will be added to you in your country.
Prof, I'm not letting you go for now. In fact, the fact that you always go to education is very pertinent and apt at the same time. But what we're saying is this. Here we have a nation being run by politicians. And we are talking about equity, fairness, and what have you. How should these people who are running the affairs of Nigerians act to sustain unity of this country? There are agitations here and there, north, south, east, and west in this country, basically because some people feel shortchanged. Some people feel that they are being marginalized. But what we're saying, as we are today, how should a politician behave to maintain unity? How should, at any level of leadership that we have in this country, leave school alone because you have said much about the school, and it is very important that the point you've raised about schools, well, that is where, that's the breeding stage, you know, of every human being. That is the nursery stage of every human being that will go to, you know, adulthood and of course become a leader. But now that we have leaders to contend with, how should they carry on with the day-to-day activities of Nigerians to ensure that we have sustainable unity?
My fellow discussants have actually talked about this. That's why I'm pushing in a direction that is very peculiar to my experience. You know, they have talked about this, you know, the issue of equity, the issue of fairness and all that. Let us look at our leaders and the language they use. You see, there is nothing, there's no control of what our leaders say. That our leaders know that they can say whatever they like and get away with it. How do we actually ensure in a country, in line with what you're asking me to say, that somebody who is representing a country, somebody who has been elected, is using appropriate language in addressing the people? And how do we also ensure that somebody who is in charge is showing respect? We have a constitution, we have guidelines, what to do and what not to do. But the issue is, are the leaders responsible enough to respect our constitution? It's not as if we are sitting here to discuss something. I mean, everything has been taken care of in our constitution. The way to behave, the way to appoint, and all that. But we see a situation where this is not respected. It's either there's a problem with the quality of education of our leaders. Why do they think the way they do? Why is their mentality a little interesting? You know, I believe, that's why I always go back to education, that if our leaders had got the kind of education that is actually appropriate for running a nation, their behavior will certainly be different. But now, as they're pushing me to say, what does the law do to somebody who is a leader and who is preaching war? What does the law do to somebody who is supposed to ensure that every part of the nation is actually represented and it's not happening? What does the law do to such a person? It's all about what can we do? And it's not something we sit down here and discuss, but a bit of calling for national dialogue. The consequence of action and consequence. The conscience says, this is the guideline, this is what you're going to do, and you don't do that, and nothing happens. You don't show respect to people, to Nigerians, you call them names and all that, and nothing happens to you. So the question is, what can be done? And I believe also that different religious leaders have something to do by actually telling leaders, please, you are going beyond the boundaries of what is acceptable. But unfortunately, because these leaders are also sponsoring our religious leaders, they don't have the courage to say, please, stop. How many of our leaders, our spiritual leaders can tell somebody, please don't bring your offertory to church because what you said last time is completely unacceptable. Don't build this church because you actually messed up in your state as governor. How many of us will be able to do this? So it calls for, on the one side, that the law should be, those in charge of implementing the courts, for example, and those in charge of making the laws, those in the House of Assemblies or the National Assembly, should wake up and do their work. And that we Nigerians should wake up to do our work and tell a governor, this language is unacceptable. And tell a minister, this language is unacceptable. And tell a president, this language is unacceptable. You are not going to fight your governor, you are not going to fight your president, you are not going to fight, but you should be able to say, this is unacceptable, even if it means their language on the television, their language in newspaper, the way you address Nigerians is unacceptable. We should be able to say this, and that's actually the point.
So much, Prof. As usual, you've raised some issues that I'm sure Ahmed Saju would like to respond to, like strengthening national unity is a collective effort by everybody in Nigeria. And the way things are now, loyalty to, the current ethnic sentiments, loyalty to politicians, is sort of bringing a stop to how Nigeria used to operate before. 61 years of independence. Some countries have gone through hell, like Rwanda, raised themselves from the ashes and established a government that works. We in Nigeria are still one. That's one thing I say. We're still one, whether we like it or not. We're still. Butrus Gali said, if there's a God, the God exists in Nigeria. We're resilient people. We're strong people. How can we bring ourselves together to tell ourselves the truth? That there's no other country but Nigeria.
Well, I think let's be honest with ourselves as well. You know, you cannot build unity around some fallacies. The truth about it is that over time, it is almost given that our natural fault lines have become currencies with which the political leadership manipulate people to attain political power. And sometimes when you use something to attain power with, you need to sustain it to sustain yourself in power. So our natural fault lines of ethnicity, region, and religion are used by the political elite to manipulate the people as the currency with which they seek for political power. And when they get that political power, because the vehicle they used ab initio is a faulty one, they sustain that faulty character of manipulation of our natural fault lines to move. And Prof raised a very fundamental issue. You know, for as long as people do not understand that they're being manipulated, for as long as people accept to gullibly be manipulated, we will continue to create wages. And he also raised a very important issue. The language our political leadership uses, and by extension, even our religious leadership, you know, are different stratas of leadership. They use languages that, first and foremost, divide our country. Secondly, you know, disrespects our people. You know, when you talk to people in a manner that does not, you know, portray coming together, I think we need to, you know, look at these issues very squarely and begin to deconstruct these manipulative tendencies within our body politic. And that is going to require a total mind shift. People must begin to realize that there are certain things that we have in common that are more realistic than even the things that we claim divide us. For example, when you are poor, you are poor. Regardless of whether you are a Muslim or a Christian, or whether you are Ijo or you are Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, if you're poor, you're poor. And that the system does not protect you as a poor person. We should begin to look at it from that perspective. And then when we look at, you know, the way the rich people behave in boardrooms, it's quite totally different from the way they behave when they come to us looking for our votes. They work as a united group in sharing their profit at that level. We must begin to enlighten our people to understand that these issues are just on the surface. The truth about it is that there is a level of unity at which, you know, the ruling elite, you know, come together to exploit those of us that are down there. And those things must be deconstructed and be laid bare. I think the key division that we have in this country should be the division of the rich and the not so rich, the deprived, those that are out of school. For example, if you want to use school as a means of reuniting the people, what about the out of school children? What about those that never had opportunities to go to school? What do you do to them? What do you tell them? And majority of them are the ones being manipulated. Anytime you see, for example, a religious uprising, if you look at the character of the people that participate, these are people who are very poor, despondent, deprived. And I think, and I will tell you, you're talking about resilience. I am resilience. Because when Boko Haram overran our hometown, you know, we saw what happened. Everybody was helping everybody. Nobody was asking anybody, what tribe are you, what religion are you. We were all helping each other escape. And when my parents ran into Cameroon, I went there to see them, and I saw the refugees in Cameroon. There was a brotherhood, you know, born out of the situation they found themselves in. And when the Buhari government came and we recovered our lands. We came back. Our resilience again worked because, you know, the recovery effort was faster than most other disaster afflicted places. So we have the resilience, but that resilience must be harnessed and be used as a tool by leadership at all levels.
Elitist consensus, like you said.
Elite consensus. Both our religious elite and our political elite and all other, our business, you know, economic elites, they must all come together and say, look, we have shared value. These values must be promoted. That is very important. If we have a shared value that we all promote, we will build our unity around those shared values.
All right, thank you. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. The topic is strengthening national unity, and a number of points have been raised by our three discussants this morning, very pertinent and, of course, direct to the point. We'll take a short break now. When we return, the conversation continues. All right, we thank you for staying with us. Three guests are still here with us in the studio. Julius, I'd like you to take up your contribution from a different perspective. We'll talk about leaders, also talk about followers. When some national burning issues are on the table, many Nigerians tend to make their own contributions via social media. And what you see on social media are comments that are, you know, that toe tribal and religious lines. You know, Nigerians tend to show who they really are when such issues come up for, you know, conversation, especially on social media. So how should Nigerians also begin to understand the concept and the ideology of national unity?
Social media is just a media, just a form of expression, a vehicle for expression. That's who they are. That's how they really feel. And social media gives a level of anonymity. You know, some people hide under pseudonyms and pseudo accounts to make some commentaries and all that. So it gives you, so you see people posting what they really feel. Probably if you have a conversation like this or you bring people to you, they will not be as vociferous as they are on social media. So it is not the social media that is the problem. It is, I think it's the acculturization of Nigerians, how Nigerians have been brought up from the onset. You know, we talked about leadership earlier. This is the same thing. It's just about garbage in, garbage out. If you pick a typical Nigerian whose mindset has been formed, who has come to believe that his people are marginalized or is on the fringe of something, and you make him a leader, you will get what he has already believed in. So that's what we have. So what we need in terms of leadership is an exceptional leader, what the Chinese call it Junzi. Somebody who's exceptional in terms of character, in terms of goodwill, in terms of energy. You know, you could have the average, you could have all what we have now, and you have an exception, somebody who is not like the typical or the average Nigerian. Then we have that. We are lucky. That person could start the engineering process. You know, you could start this change we are talking about, building a shared dream, building a country out of a shared vision instead of ethnicity, religion, and the rest. So with social media, that is who the Nigerians are. That is how they've been brought up. Maybe in their family, in their homes, they have this private conversation. Oh, these people hate us. These ones are not our friends. These ones are enemies. And probably they may be right because of what they might have experienced, where you have inter-tribal crisis. Some people have to run back to their places. So their mindsets, most of their mindsets have been formed. They've got this view about the country that our own is our own, maybe ethnicity, maybe it is religion. So they form conclaves, small enclaves for themselves, you know. So what we could have, so the social media is not the issue. It's about the mindset of the average Nigerian. That is what is expressed on Facebook and Twitter and other places. So those are just media of expression. So that's not the problem. It is a mindset. What is the acculturization of the average Nigerian? It's not just about school. In addition to what Prof said about school, most people, those kind of conversations, they don't take place in school. They take place in homes.
On the streets.
On the street. Where people, their parents will tell them, you don't eat in this people's house, they are Muslims, or don't eat in that other, they are Christians, or don't do this, don't do that. So that is what we have now. It is bad. So if you have such a man grows up with such a mind and he becomes a leader, so what do you expect him to give? To start speaking about unity when he's been told all of his life that is different, the other people are his enemies? Do you understand? His mind is made up. So what we need to do is our recruitment process. if you want to recruit a national leader, you must look for the exception. You must look for a Junzi, somebody who is exceptional. You know, you could have 100 people or 99 people who have this mindset, but there will be one person who says, okay, I've been brought up like this. This is how this country is, but I'm different. I think we can build a Nigerian identity. I think we can build a country out of a shared values, actually a shared aspiration. But if you continue to pick out of the 99 whose mind already been made up that they want to kill us, they hate us, and you make him president or you make him governor of a state, you will find what we have in Nigeria. So our recruitment process has to change. We have to look for that exceptional man or woman to lead us, to drive this Nigerian identity. If we don't, we'll continue to have what we have now, where we have a country that is so disunited, that is so unstable, that is so tense, that our conversations are so emotive. Oh, they hate us, can't accuse. You know, just a loud noise. You know, it's hard because a lot of Nigerians think like it's on social media. They may not tell you. But a lot of Nigerians think and express themselves privately, as you have on social media. So if you want to recruit a leader, you have to look for that exceptional person. Because even in a class, there's a first class. You know, there are very few of them. But you have to look for that person. You have to look for that woman or man who is not like the typical Nigerian, who regardless of his upbringing, regardless of what he had heard about his faith or his ethnicity, he says, I want to build a Nigerian identity. If you have such a person and he rules by that virtue that he has, after a while, you start finding a lot of people changing. But if you have a tribal bigot who become president, you now say he should change and speak on national unity, you're just deceiving yourself. That's who he is. You know, you will find expression in his policies, in his plans, in his actions.
Based on what you're saying
I'm
now.
not cutting you short, Jume. I'm not cutting him short, really. But why I ask this question is because you find well-educated Nigerians involved in this. In fact, not just in sending messages or something. Some audio. Some people begin to express what you have just explained. That the hatred that people express.
That is who they
and
are.
Social media, permeates.
It is not social media. It's just a media. It's just a vehicle.
Exactly.
That is who they are. If you could meet those people privately in their home, that is what they tell their children. That is who they are. The problem is on social media. Would I start becoming who I'm not because of the social media? I won't be who I'm. I can't express the things. You understand? I won't change because there is Facebook or Twitter. You understand? Why it is easier to do that? Because it's easy to communicate. It gives some level of anonymity. You could create a pseudo account, a fake account with a fake name, and say these things. It's easy. What social media does is make communication very fast, unlike print, and there are no censor, no gatekeeping. There's no editor who is going to say, no, we won't take this. You just put it on Facebook, it's live. But if you write some things to newspapers, they won't publish. They'll say, no, this is...
But how does this affect national unity?
It is not the media that is the problem. It is not the media. It's not the media.
We're talking about the people who are doing the not
I
the
say
media.
it is the mindset of the Nigerian. It is the way it's been brought up. It is a culturalization process. The media is just a means of expression.
Exactly.
If you take the media, do you mean there will be no conversation in his house? His father will not tell him, these people hate us, this religion doesn't like us. Wouldn't do. It could be bottled up, and one day it could explode in terms of religious crisis, in terms of ethnic crisis. So it is not the media that is a problem. It's that culturalization. So what I said is that the way out of it, because we're in the loop, we're in a very difficult situation. A lot of people have grown with this mindset. NYS hasn't changed it. Unity School hasn't changed it. You have them become governors. You have them become leaders of parties. They've grown. They may not express it in their board meetings like Saju said, but when they get home, they know what they tell their children. They know how they tell their followers that this is what we want, this is what we really want to do. Do you understand? So we have such a situation. What is the way out? You know, it could be between the rock and the hard place, but there is a way out. That's why I said that. You can't have everybody like this. It could be the normal, popular, but you could have an exception. If you have a class of dollar, you have one or two that are. So in our recruitment process of leaders, you understand it, you look for that exceptional person. Somebody who doesn't have the typical Nigerian mindset, who is not speaking based on his region or in ethnicity or his religion or his sect. When you have such leadership, you could start this social engineering process. But if you continue to pick out of the normal people, it's like computer garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly.
You can't have a Senate.
Julius, thank you so much. Let's join Prof in Enugu. Prof, we've been listening to what our other guests have been talking, and it is true. They say that a multi-ethnic society, in a multi-ethnic society, national cohesion might not be attainable, but is it impossible?
Certainly not. Certainly not. We have seen some countries of the world with differences, United States of America with differences, and so many other countries of the world with their differences. These countries are working. It's simply to get a kind of modality that will work. That's always very crucial. Julius has said it's about mindset. Are we actually willing? Do we understand what it means? Do we know the benefits of living together, of unity? That's actually very crucial. Because there are some people who think they will get more benefits by being divided. They will get more benefits when there is confusion, and they will get more benefits when there is chaos. But a good type of education will actually help us to have a different mindset. It's all about the mind. And I keep going back to education because this is where it happens. Somebody has defined education as a process that makes human beings out of animals. Basically, we're animals. It is a process of education that makes us what we are. The society must decide the kind of citizenry we have, and then get the kind of education that will give it this kind of citizenry. There was sometime in the past, we were talking about languages, 3 major languages in Nigeria, Hausa, for example, Igbo, and Yoruba. All of a sudden, nobody hears anything about that. Assuming all Nigerians can speak 2 other languages from Nigeria outside their own, there may be the fear of minority. And now, if you take Hausa, you take Igbo, you take Yoruba, what about the minority languages? We have over 400 languages in Nigeria. We can't decide to allay their fears by simply saying, you have to learn 2 more languages outside their own. And that is part of that education. That is part of the change of mindset. Because there's a way language changes the way you look at the world. If you have just one language, then your world is that particular language. But if you have 1, 2, 3, 4 languages, your perspective changes. Because each language is also about culture, about the wisdom of people, about the way they do things and all that. And opens the doors for understanding. Change of mindset is not something that happens just by sitting down. It happens when there is experience. When, for example, you learn a new language, you begin to understand the people. I speak German well, and I understand the German mentality. Okay? Any language you learn opens the door of mentality, of culture, of wisdom of the people. Why are we not emphasizing this? I don't know whether it is even being emphasized in so-called unity schools. Whether the children are made to learn 2 or 3 languages outside their own in Nigeria. Of course, you will tell me we speak English, but English is not our native tongue. Certainly not. And you see the way many of us actually speak it. We say things that an English person will look at and say, man, I mean, this is very foreign to me. So there are things we must do. There are things we must do for this cohesion, national cohesion, to be possible. And it's through the process of education. Kirian rightly pointed out that even some educated people are doing this. Educated, what is the quality of education? Unfortunately, in this country, we here found worthy in character and learning. Found worthy in character and learning. And I ask, where is the character component? Somebody has a first class. Where is the character? How have you measured the character component? This is why we brought in the idea of measuring character in the university. Character assessment is part of what you are doing at Godfrey Okoye University. It is part of your academic assessment. It's part of your CGPA. So that at the end of the day, if you have a first class, then you have a first class in your field and in character. So that is education. That I am excellent in mathematics, I speak English well and all that, then I call myself an educated person. An educated person is somebody who has the qualities, the skills, the values that a country is communicating. And if I don't have these values, then it means I'm not educated. So when we say even the educated people, then I put the educated in inverted commas. Because when you do things contrary to the values of a nation, then you are not yet educated. It means you know one skill, the skill of mathematics or English and all that, you can do it well. But other skills are actually very far from you. So that is it. The change of mindset will certainly happen when we get it right in our different organs of communicating knowledge. And I want to go back again to our emphasis of learning other languages, because that is one way we can have a change of mindset.
Let's return to you, Ahmed Saju. Do we really need a reorientation of Nigerians? And you have mentioned some very critical points with respect to strengthening the unity of this country. But I want to ask you whether we need to promote, how do we now promote the qualities, the concepts and ideologies of national unity for among Nigerians, not just the leaders, but the followers as well?
No, the Prof has put it very, very clearly. We need a mind shift. We need we need a new mindset about our country. But there is one serious difficulty, Korean, and we must tell ourselves the truth. Also in this area, there are increasingly shrinking opportunities for people to engage in the country. You know, the famous quotation from John F. Kennedy, that think not of what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, can only work where the country also provides the opportunity to do. You know, there are shrinking opportunities, and I think we need to begin to wrap some conversations around, the opportunities that are available for people. When people get educated, Prof has been emphasizing on education. When people get educated and their knowledge and skills have been honed, sufficiently enough for productive engagement, and then they move out there to the field and all the opportunities are blocked and they cannot apply those knowledge and skills into productive engagement because opportunities do not exist, they become more frustrated. And then they begin to reflect. And when they reflect, based on a blocked opportunity, they begin to reflect and refer back to all the negatives they've been socialized with. Like my brother Julius was telling you, that they've been socialized at home, in the church or mosque, that there are enemies out there who are making life very difficult for you. There are even village people also who are doing certain automopo against you, and they look at all of these things, because they've been trained, they've been educated, their skills and knowledge have been honed, they are ready to participate, but the opportunities are blocked. They sit down and begin to reflect on all the negatives they've been told, and over time, because there is nobody to reinforce on the knowledge they have learned, the reflection of their socialization begins to work more on their minds, and then their mindset goes negative. And eventually, if such a person gets an opportunity after a long period of such difficulties, when he gets an opportunity, the tendency is that the negative mindset had overtaken whatever positive he has, and then he applies the negative onto society, and then society suffers as a result. Indeed,
with opportunities also comes empowerment. How will it enhance national unity? Briefly.
You mean opportunities? What opportunities? What kind of opportunities? You mean you make somebody, give them opportunities to be government official?
To empower them. Whatever way.
I don't know. It should not be at the expense of other people anyway. You should not empower one group ahead of another group. So empowerment is good for economic stability, economic growth, personal human development. But the idea of unity is totally different, some of the leaders we have, they have opportunities, but they are not agents of change in terms of national unity. So I think it also has to do with the mindset and the socialization process and the kind of leaders we recruit. So if we recruit the kind of leaders who are exceptional, who are not the typical Nigerian, whatever opportunities they have, they are going to use it. If we recruit the bad ones, the people whose mindset has already been formed, and give them opportunity to lead us, they will express what they have inside of them. Do you understand? So opportunity necessarily will not translate into national unity in that sense. You understand?
Well from our conversation this morning, it does appear that a lot needs to be done, really, you know,
Yeah.
to effectively strengthen national unity. Yes. We have raised a number of points that are very pertinent to this very topic. We hope that as we enter into the year 2022, things will just it will get better.
Yeah. So much is going to go down.
Yes, and maybe we'll have opportunities open for Nigerians to also, of course, display their skills and their resources. All right, gentlemen, we'd like to appreciate you for being here this morning. Ahmed Saju, former Commissioner for Information, Adamawa State, and of course the Strategy and the Public Affairs Analyst.
Thank you very much.
It's been wonderful having you this morning.
My pleasure, always.
Julius Ogunro, Director, Research and Strategy, National Prosperity Movement. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Reverend Father Professor Christian Aniake, Vice Chancellor, Godfrey Okoye University, Enugu. We thank you for sharing your time and your thoughts with us this morning. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. All right, let's take on sports news.
And foreign news is next.
A general gloom has settled over South Africa as tributes with some criticism pour in following the death of anti-apartheid icon Archbishop Desmond Tutu. An ethnically diverse group of mourners gathered outside St. George's Cathedral Church in Cape Town as they laid wreaths and paid their last respect to the 90-year-old Anglican priest. Memorial services are being organized across the country's main cities of Cape Town, Bloemfontein and Pretoria as tributes pour in from African leaders and an international community for a man who was instrumental in building a democratic South Africa. After the end of apartheid, Desmond Tutu chaired the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was set up to unearth atrocities committed by the white minority government from 1948 to 1991, when apartheid laws were repealed. The hearing, which formally began in 1996, ended with many apartheid regime leaders walking away with blanket amnesty, a historical fact that has now sparked debate about how the Archbishop should be remembered.
Well, and that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you for watching. Hope to see you again tomorrow, or we'll bring you a fresh edition of the program. My name is Kirian Umar. Have a wonderful holiday.
And I am Jumo Yusuf. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Don't forget to follow all non-pharmaceutical protocols and join the fight against rape and rapists.